The Prelude has its origins to the original Final Fantasy, composed by Nobuo Uematsu and released in Japan in 1987 and North America in 1990, and has persisted in some way or form in every mainline Final Fantasy game to date. No matter what the story is, no matter what characters you attach to, there is always this one prevailing piece of music that stays with us throughout all of our journeys. Let's take a look at what makes this musical piece tick. First, we have to break down what constitutes the piece itself. There are 14 named Final Fantasy games with a number of offshoots that all have their own unique individual interpretation of this theme. Dissecting this is important, as it tells us a bit about what makes this theme so powerful over time. Let's talk about the harp. This is a simple pattern that plays throughout the whole of the piece in various forms, but it typically follows this format. It contains 1, 3, and 5 from the chord being played, with the addition of some other note. This other note we will call the flavor note, as it adds color and depth to the sequence in which it is played, but it does not alter whether our chord is major or minor. What is interesting about this flavor note that Uematsu uses is that it delays our ear from hearing the 3 from our 1, 3, 5 components. That 3 tells us specifically whether a chord is major or minor, and by delaying it to our ears with the addition of a note in between, it creates some more fluidity to the overall makeup of our chord structure. In the first 4 measures, we have a C major chord, followed by an A minor chord. Though not a complete cadence as we defined it in my Dark Souls video, it establishes through repetition that C is in fact our tonic, or home base. It is important to note that each chord sequence starts off with the 1 of our chord, or the note that the chord is named after. This changes in measure 9, where instead of starting on what should be the note F, we start on an A. This A is the 3 of the chord F and starts us off on our journey into foreign lands, if just a little bit. Putting another note on the bottom of a chord like this is called an inversion, and helps unsettle the overall chord structure. It makes our ears a little uneasy, even if it is a chord we have heard before. In this case, Uematsu is preparing us for an actual cadence. The chord F moves up to the chord G, which is our dominant chord, and the chord that should naturally flow back into our home, C. But Uematsu tricks the listener here in a very clever way. He uses what we call a deceptive cadence to send our ears away from home and into another chord. The chords we end up hearing are A-flat and B-flat, which are foreign to a C major scale, but they most certainly are not to the discerning Final Fantasy ear. Don't recognize them? Let's put them into another context. This deceptive cadence is now even more deceptive. Not only is it a way to prolong our ears' return to home, but it also hints at the victories to come from the adversity we are about to face. This subtle nod to the victory fanfare we hear after every battle tells us the entire story of each Final Fantasy game. The melody does some very interesting things as well. Listen to the first phrase here at the entrance of the melody. It uses C as an anchor, moving from B to D and then back to C again as the chords change from major to minor. This changes how C, or home, feels to our ears. It can be highlighted in the more jovial sounds of a major chord. Likewise, it can sound gloomy when put into the context of a minor chord. Uematsu does this deftly to illustrate for us the journey of each Final Fantasy character, who, as we know from the games, each in turn goes through times of happiness and sadness. The melody changes when the chord structures change, wanting desperately to find its way back to the comfortable sound of C, but unable to quite get there. The chords dictate a sense of foreignness, and so too the melody climbs upward, trying resiliently in our A-flat and B-flat chords to try and descend back down to C. This all repeats, with variations put into the harmony and counter melodies, but these are elements that rely on their individual games. The prelude, as heard in Final Fantasy VI, is wildly different from its iteration in Final Fantasy IX, and so on and so forth. In our next video, we will be investigating these changes, and how Uematsu and his successors use instrumentation, opposing melodic voices, and technology to represent the prelude in each game.